We are gathered here today to pay tribute to our Lord and teacher, Paul Sellers, lest he may teach us more skills of hand woodworking, that we may go forth and make fine furniture and wall clocks. Actually, no, I haven't taken up a new religion, and this isn't a religious altar either. This is my new workbench that I've made. Now, I know it looks a bit like an altar, but it is actually a workbench, and I'll show you why in a short while. Why have I built myself an altar, you may ask? Well, the reason is this is where I kind of work at the moment. It's my workshop, and it's quite limited on space. So I've got my sort of metalwork area over here, where I've got my lathe, then I've got a bench here, or a desk rather, which is not very sturdy. So for all my woodworking, I'm currently working on a Black & Decker Workmate, which is a bit flimsy, to say the least. Now, I don't have the space for like a proper full-on English workbench or anything like that. So I thought, well, what can I do in the meantime? I just don't have the space here. So I thought what I really need is like a small woodworking bench that will help me with some of the things I need to do in woodwork. And the biggest problem I had with the Workmate was that they're just so flimsy these days. You know, the top of them now is like sort of 18 mil thick bamboo. So the problem with that is if you want to put something on it and you want to hit it, all the energy of the blow just goes into bouncing the Workmate up and down and making noise and vibrating things. So what I wanted was like a really solid surface that I could do some chiseling on and bashing on. And that's where this comes in. This is basically like a woodworking anvil. It's a big solid piece of wood, and it's really for hitting things on. So as you might notice on the front here, we've got a Thor's hammer on the front. When I first made this, it was my wife that pointed out that I looked like I was about to break into a sermon. And as it was at the time, I didn't have a name for this project. I didn't know what to call this thing. I called it like a wood anvil or a hitting bench or a bench of thumping, whatever. And when my wife said it looked like an altar, I thought for a bit of fun, we'll call it the Altar of Thor. So I call this the Altar of Thor workbench. And that's why we've got a carving of Thor's hammer, also known as Mjolnir, on the front here. So it's a bit of fun, really. So this is the Altar of Thor hammering bench, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I made it, and then we'll have a look and I'll show you how you can use it. So a little while ago, I saw on Facebook someone was giving away a load of wood. They said basically come and collect it and it's yours. And I was sort of second to comment on their post, and I basically said, look, if you've got any wood left over, let me know. And as it was, they got in touch with me a bit later and said, yeah, okay, the person that came to collect the wood has taken some of it, but not all of it. There's still some left. I went round there to pick up what was left, and it became evident why they'd left this other wood there. Basically, what was left was two 5x5 by 3 metre long fence posts, I suppose they were, massive, great big chunks of wood. I'll put a picture up of those. And also what was effectively like a railway sleeper. And this was all brand new timber. It was sort of tannalised, treated outdoor timber. And the reason they'd left it is they just couldn't lift it. So I thought, well, okay, it'll probably come in handy one day. So I brought it home, and I thought I can probably make a woodworking bench out of this. As I say, I don't really have the space here to accommodate a woodworking bench. So I sat on the idea for a while. As it was, I had more and more need for something I could bash things on and carve things on without it wobbling around. So I started to think about how I can maybe make a smaller kind of woodworking bench, something to just keep me going until I got space for something a bit more industrial sized, shall we say. So I started thinking about how I could make like almost like an anvil. I thought I need some sort of wooden anvil, like you have a metalworking anvil where you can just beat metal on it and it's really sort of resilient to being hit. I thought I need a similar thing for woodworking, so I can chop out dados and tenons and mortises and all that kind of stuff. And I started thinking about how I could use some of the wood I've got. In the end, I gave up with all the sort of complicated ideas I was having of like benches, foldable benches with tripods and legs. And I thought, well, why not just make something like this? Just really simple. So I got the railway sleeper. It was 5 inches by 10 inches by 6'6". That's 250 mil by 125 mil by about 2 meters long. And I cut it in 3 and made this out of it. And as I say, this was tannalised timber, so it had that sort of like nasty chemical coating. While I was making it, I basically used, I'll show you. So I basically roughed it out with this, which is an old 4-plane. So I roughed it out with this, and I've got some footage of that I'll show you actually. I decided while I was doing that I'd wear a dust mask, because really you don't want to breathe in any of the sort of chemicals that they used to treat these things with. It didn't make much sawdust, but it made shavings, and I just thought, oh, I won't take the risk. So anyway, so I basically shaped up the wood. And just cut a big 10 and a mortise on each end, and then put it together. Ended up with this. Now I'll bring you in a little bit closer and I'll show you some of the detail on the top. All right, so on the top, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but we've got a couple of areas here where the wood has split quite badly. I was surprised actually as I worked on this how much the wood just split and started opening up on me. So I cut in a couple of channels in here, one here, put in, I believe they're known as Dutchmen. But this basically stops it from opening up any further, and it seems to be quite stable now. It's stayed flat for quite a while. And also in the top, I've put in 10 dogs. So we've got these little wooden dogs that we can pop up, which is quite handy. Some of them are still a little bit stiff. And the dogs, these are basically 20mm beech dowels. So I just bought some beech dowel because it's nice and hard. It's going to be pretty resilient. And in the back here, I think this is a 2mm diameter bit of piano wire, or also known as music wire in some parts of the world. So this is basically bent at 90 degrees at this end, and then a slight bend here, and then there's a little groove that I've hand cut with a chisel, a hole drilled in here for the end to go in, and then we've got a nice little sort of spring that means that they don't fall out. Now as it is, you might notice here that they're all numbered. So we've got number 10, and we've got number 1. There's a reason for that. As is often the way with these things, I was at home to Mr. Cock Up when I marked out the holes for this. What I did was I thought, okay, I need to mark out the holes and I want them 20mm in from the edges. So I measured in 20mm from each edge, drew lines, drilled all the holes, and then thought, oh, is it square? And of course, Murphy's Law says, no, it isn't square. So it wasn't square. So what that meant was if I had the dogs here, for example, in a corner, and I popped these up, and then I got a piece of wood I was working on, I put it in here, the corner wouldn't be square because the holes weren't square, and the wood would like move around like that. So luckily it wasn't that far out. So what I had to do basically was to pop all the dogs in and then remark them with actually a squared rectangle, which meant that some of the dogs are thicker than others. So this one here might be thicker this way, this one might be a bit thinner. And that means that all the dogs have to go in the right hole, which is why they're all numbered. So I was lucky that time, it wasn't too far out, and now everything's nice and sort of 90 degrees between the dogs. Like I said, the main use for this really is for hitting things on. I mean, you can see it's like an absolute dead sort of blow when you hit it. There's no give whatsoever. So the idea with that is that when you hit a chisel into something, all the energy goes into the actual work and not just into wobbling the bench, as is the case with the Black & Decker Workmate. So what you can do with this, if we pop up, say, some of these dogs here, and we've got a bit of wood we want to thump, what we can do is we've got some wedges, and we can just wedge this in here. Hopefully this will be big enough. There we go. So we can just hold it there against the dogs, and then you're free to just, like, you know, whack it as much as you like, really. I mean, you get a real dead blow with this when you hit it. And even hitting it sort of laterally with blows this way, it still actually holds up quite well because there's so much mass in it. Because it has so much mass, it sort of resists being hit sideways as well. So it's actually quite sturdy in a sort of lateral direction, not just in a top-down direction. So another good thing with this is that it's a really nice height as well. I find working on something like a Workmate or even a desk sometimes, or a low bench, really kills your back after a while. So with this, you can kind of just work standing up. So you can work in a much more upright position. But that also helps me as well if I'm marking out. So this is really great for marking out on. You know, I can put my work on here, and my eyes not being as good as they once were, I had to be a certain distance to be able to see things. So this puts things nicely in my focus range. You know, if it's too far away, I can't see it. And if it's too close, same thing, I need reading glasses. So this is just a nice sort of height to work at. So if you're marking things out, it brings it up to just a nice comfortable level. And I can work standing up all day. I don't have a problem with that. So ergonomically, really good for the old back. As I say, this is really intended as a sort of for hitting things on. It's meant to take a vertical kind of blow, but it's surprising actually how well it stands up to being used laterally as well. So even if you want to plane things, I mean, it's not ideal for planing on, but it does work. So if I grab a plane, you can stick a foot on the base there, brace it up your knee, and you can actually sort of I say it's not perfect for that. It does move around a bit, but you can actually plane things on it as well. I've used it for sawing things on. So another thing you could do with it is, if I get rid of this, oh, well, that's that gone. Let's say you wanted to saw something, you can just swivel this around, say. Grab a clamp. And you can just clamp things onto it like this, onto the sides, and you could saw down through that, and it'll probably hold quite well if I do that. It moves around a little bit, but at a push, it works quite well. So there you have it. That's the Altar of Thor workbench for people with limited space and the need to hit things with hammers. So I hope you've enjoyed watching that. I hope you found it interesting. And why not go and grab a railway sleeper and make your own Altar of Thor. So all it remains is to say thanks for watching. I'll leave you with some more footage of it being made and also the carving of Mjolnir.